Olivia Martin and her brother Daniel were the heart of Coral Pine's quiet Magnolia Drive until one sweltering summer night when both were found brutally murdered in their own home, a shocking crime that turned a friendly Florida neighborhood into a place of fear and relentless suspicion. The quiet streets of Coral Pine, Florida, always seemed frozen in a postcard moment, where palm fronds swayed lazily and neighbors paused to wave from their driveways. Late August brought heavy heat that clung to every surface, yet residents welcomed the slow rhythm of their small community. That calm shattered one humid morning when the wail of sirens pierced the dawn. By sunrise, police cruisers and flashing lights lined Magnolia Drive, their presence impossible to ignore. Yellow tape sealed off the pale yellow bungalow at the end of the block, a home that had always felt as harmless as a child's drawing. Inside, officers discovered a scene that would haunt them for months. Olivia Martin and her younger brother Daniel lay lifeless in the home they had shared for years. The siblings were well known in the neighborhood. Olivia, the gentle art teacher who painted cheerful murals for local parks, and Daniel, a dependable marina worker often spotted fixing leaky gutters or helping elderly neighbors carry groceries. The first to sense something was wrong had been a postal worker on his morning route. He noticed an unusual stack of unopened mail spilling from the Martins' box, and when he peered through the front window, the curtains swayed in the stagnant air, revealing a toppled lamp and broken picture frame. Alarmed, he called the police. Responding officers entered through an unlocked back door and found a chaotic scene. Furniture was overturned, glass littered the floor, and streaks of dark red marked the hallway walls. Nothing looked stolen at first glance, and yet the violence suggested rage more than desperation. As the news spread, neighbors gathered in clusters at the edge of the taped yard, whispering in disbelief. Children were hurried back inside by anxious parents. Many residents insisted they had heard nothing unusual the night before, though one recalled a distant dog barking sometime near midnight. The Martins' close friends struggled to process what had happened. Both Olivia and Daniel were considered the kind of people who would rather help a stranger than hurt one. There were no known feuds, no late-night arguments, no history that might explain such brutality. For a neighborhood that prided itself on safety, the murders shattered a sense of trust. The sight of forensic teams photographing every corner of the quiet home left an indelible image. If violence could erupt here, it could happen anywhere. By evening, the once friendly street felt altered, shadows stretching longer than usual, and the comforting hum of cicadas was replaced by a heavy silence that settled like a warning no one could quite name. Detectives arrived determined to trace the Martins' final hours, hoping each fragment of evidence would reveal a motive. They began by retracing Olivia's daily schedule. Her co-workers at the local elementary school said she had left a staff meeting early 2 days before the discovery, smiling as always, and mentioned nothing unusual. Her phone records showed no alarming messages, only reminders about lesson plans and a grocery list. Daniel's activities were just as ordinary. He had finished a late shift at the marina, where he helped secure boats ahead of an approaching thunderstorm, and then stopped by a convenience store for coffee and bread. Security footage confirmed he drove straight home. Nothing pointed to danger, yet something terrible had unfolded inside their house just hours later. Inside the bungalow, investigators cataloged every detail. Fingerprints dotted the kitchen counter, none matching Olivia or Daniel. A trail of muddy shoe prints led from the back door to the hallway where the bodies were found. Near Daniel's hand lay a broken watch with its face cracked and its second hand frozen at 11:47 p.m. Forensic teams collected the shards carefully, treating the time as a possible clue to the attack. Despite the chaos, valuables remained untouched. Olivia's jewelry box, filled with delicate silver pieces, sat undisturbed. Daniel's wallet rested on the entryway table with cash still inside. This absence of theft unsettled detectives, ruling out a simple burglary and hinting at something personal. Neighbors recalled little to help. A retired couple next door mentioned hearing a dog barking around midnight, but assumed it belonged to another household. A jogger passing through the area earlier that evening saw a dark SUV idling near the corner, but paid it no mind. Without witnesses or clear motive, the case grew colder with each interview. The medical examiner's report only deepened the mystery. Both siblings died from blunt force trauma, yet the weapon was never found. The report suggested a sudden, violent confrontation rather than a prolonged fight. Investigators theorized that the attacker might have entered through the back door, which showed signs of forced entry but no fingerprints on the knob. The lack of clear leads unsettled the entire neighborhood. Residents who once left doors unlocked began installing alarms and motion lights, while detectives worked long hours chasing threads that seemed to vanish. Every unanswered question, why this house? Why these siblings? Why no theft, tightened the knot of fear that now gripped Coral Pine and kept the investigation alive even as clues grew thin. Weeks passed, and pressure on the investigation grew as media outlets spotlighted the unsolved double murder. Detectives reviewed every piece of evidence again, determined not to let the trail go cold. During this second sweep, a connection emerged that no one had noticed before. 2 months earlier, in a neighboring town less than 10 miles away, a quiet household had experienced a late-night break-in. Windows were smashed, drawers rifled through, yet nothing valuable was missing. That case, never solved, carried eerie similarities to the Martins' tragedy: signs of forced entry, violent disruption, and no theft. Investigators began to wonder if the same person was escalating from property damage to deadly assault. This theory gained momentum when they studied surveillance footage from a gas station near Magnolia Drive on the night of the murders. Cameras captured a dark SUV circling the area shortly after 11 p.m., its license plate partially coated in mud, obscuring identification. The vehicle slowed near the Martin Street before disappearing into the night. Technicians enhanced the images but could only confirm the make and model, not the full plate number. Still, it offered a tangible lead. Detectives canvassed the region for owners of similar SUVs, focusing on anyone with a criminal record or ties to the victims. Their search soon highlighted a former handyman who had done odd jobs for the Martins the previous year. He drove a vehicle matching the description and had a history of petty theft and disputes with clients. Further digging revealed he had recently been evicted, adding to suspicions that financial stress might drive desperate acts. Investigators interviewed neighbors who remembered seeing him in the area weeks before the killings, allegedly asking about work. It seemed promising until the handyman produced an ironclad alibi, security footage showing him eating at a late-night diner across town at the time of the murders. Cross-reference timestamps left no doubt. He was cleared, forcing detectives back to square one. Frustration set in as each promising lead unraveled. Forensic teams scoured the crime scene again, rechecking fingerprints, but all unmatched samples led nowhere in national databases. Residents grew restless, fearful of an unknown killer possibly living among them. Rumors spread quickly, some whispered about drifters, others about secret grudges, but no theory stuck. Yet investigators held to one crucial belief: the murderer had made a mistake, however small. Somewhere in the collected evidence, a detail waited to be uncovered, something so ordinary it had been overlooked. Detectives doubled their efforts, convinced that a hidden fragment within the chaos of that night would eventually expose the truth. A month into the stalled investigation, a breakthrough came from an unexpected corner of the forensic lab. A technician examining the broken watch found near Daniel's body noticed faint specks wedged into the cracked metal band. Under high magnification, the particles revealed themselves as tiny flakes of weathered blue paint, unlike anything inside the Martins' home. Testing identified the pigment as a marine-grade coating once popular for fishing boats but discontinued years earlier. This discovery shifted the focus away from random suspects and toward Daniel's world at the marina, where boats of every age and condition lined the docks. Detectives revisited his workplace, interviewing co-workers and scrutinizing records of anyone with a reason to resent him. One name kept resurfacing: a colleague known for quick temper and financial troubles. Months before the murders, Daniel had reported suspicious fuel sales that cost this co-worker a lucrative side arrangement with local boat owners. Several witnesses quietly suggested that the man had never forgiven him, often muttering about ruined opportunities. Investigators pulled the co-worker's background and found a troubling pattern: past bar fights, unpaid debts, and a recent attempt to sell his boat under a false name. When asked routine questions, he offered vague answers and claimed he had been home alone on the night of the murders, an alibi no one could confirm. Detectives obtained a warrant to examine his property. Beneath a stack of tarps near the waterline of his private dock, they uncovered a discarded sheet of heavy plastic, stiff with dried stains. Initial tests showed traces of human blood, though the sample was too degraded for immediate confirmation. Further analysis matched the DNA to both Olivia and Daniel, a revelation that transformed suspicion into certainty. Additional searches revealed that the co-worker's boat had been hastily repainted in a shade nearly identical to the flecks found on Daniel's watch, as if to conceal fresh scratches or other evidence. The motive grew clearer as investigators pieced together a timeline. The co-worker had learned that Daniel planned to meet marina management about the illegal fuel scheme the following week. Fear of exposure may have driven him to a late-night confrontation. Familiar with the Martins' routine and their quiet neighborhood, he likely approached under the cover of darkness, entering through a back door he once helped Daniel repair. His intent may have been to intimidate, but anger spiraled into violence. With the forensic link secure, detectives prepared the arrest warrant, knowing the discovery of those microscopic paint flakes had finally pierced the mystery surrounding the brutal double murder. The arrest unfolded at dawn, when the marina co-worker stepped onto the dock for what he assumed would be another quiet morning. Detectives approached swiftly, their presence leaving no chance for escape. News of the capture rippled through Coral Pine before noon, carried by urgent text messages and local radio updates. Neighbors who had spent weeks glancing over their shoulders finally exhaled, though relief was tangled with disbelief. Many knew the man casually from weekend fishing trips and friendly waves across the water. To imagine that someone so familiar could harbor such violence left the community unsettled, even as they welcomed the end of uncertainty. In court, prosecutors revealed a chilling sequence of events. The co-worker, desperate to silence Daniel, waited until nightfall and used knowledge of the Martins' home to slip through the back entrance. He confronted Daniel first, and the argument turned physical almost immediately. Olivia, awakened by the commotion, rushed to her brother's aid, becoming an unplanned victim. The attacker's attempt to disguise the killings as a chaotic burglary was undone by his own carelessness. Those microscopic paint flakes from his repainted boat and the blood-stained tarp hidden beneath his dock became irrefutable proof. Investigators testified about the painstaking work that connected each fragment of evidence, showing how an overlooked detail finally exposed the truth. During the trial, the defense tried to cast doubt on the forensic chain of custody, but the jury remained unmoved. The timeline, the motive rooted in greed and resentment, and the physical evidence formed a seamless narrative. After days of testimony, the verdict of guilty was delivered without hesitation. The judge handed down a life sentence, ensuring the man who once shared casual banter with his neighbors would spend the rest of his days behind bars. Even with justice served, Coral Pine could not easily return to its former tranquility. Magnolia Drive, once a symbol of suburban peace, carried a weight it had never known. Residents installed new locks and cameras, and evening gatherings grew smaller. Olivia's students placed flowers and painted murals in her memory, while the marina honored Daniel by dedicating a dock to his name. Yet the legacy of that night lingered beyond memorials. The case became a quiet cautionary tale, reminding everyone that danger can hide behind familiar smiles. The cicadas eventually resumed their nightly song, but for those who lived through the fear and revelation, the sound carried a different meaning, a steady rhythm underscoring the fragility of trust in even the most peaceful of places.